Well, it is going to be a very damp and sloggy walkabout this morning. We got a lot of rain last night, and we have thunderstorms in the forecast for later this afternoon. Keep your fingers crossed we don't get any flash flooding. I do want to show you, though, one of the very few undamaged, unblemished trees from the last ice storm was this gorgeous Bloodgood red Japanese maple that is over here in my workspace. And I'm not sure why it did not succumb to all of the ice and the cold, but it didn't, and it's really beautiful. And for that, I am thankful, particularly as I continue to take inventory of what made it and what didn't make it. And this is my pivotal week, you guys. There's a number of different plants that I will show you as we walk about that I have determined are really sincerely dead, and it's just time to do something about them. Interestingly, these topiaries here that look very much alive, I'm not sure if they're alive or just preserved in green because they're not showing any evidence of new growth. I'm hoping they are just delayed, but I'm trying to be patient. Up here, I did have to replace a couple of plants that died, and I replaced them with this gorgeous Angyo Fatshedera. That's a southern living plant. I actually replaced two of them. And even though they're not supposed to be very cold hardy, they have proven to be very much so. Now, they didn't make it through this last -13 spell we had this winter, but nevertheless, prior to that, they did very well. And I told you that I had also filled some pots here with some Hellebores that I transplanted from the front, and yes, they are doing beautifully. So I've got another couple of pots here, and I think I'm going to do the same because this is a very shady spot, and I have had to buy a number of new plants, but I'm also trying to reuse what I've already got in the landscape. Plus, the Hellebore really seem to like the cold, so they have gone gangbusters, and I'm going to transplant some of them around my landscape, and also, of course, give some to others. Now, when I look at my garden, one of the things that I miss, in addition to some of my favorite plants that expired this year, is the fact that I don't have my traditional definition that I normally have because I lost so much of the bones of the garden. Now, that's coming back. It is just very slow in coming back. Let me point out there, because I've gotten a lot of questions on it recently, the ivy that's growing on the studio in the back, that is Boston ivy. It's not Virginia creeper, it's Boston ivy. But back to how I am missing the definition. A lot of the boxwood in the front that was damaged, a lot of the trees, my red buds that were damaged, the trees in the front, the oak tree, the maple, those normally are beautifully, beautifully pruned to accentuate and enhance the architecture and the form of the plants themselves. But this year, because the trees were so brutally assaulted in that winter storm, they need as much leafy canopy and foliage as possible to feed the plant itself. So even those leaves that come out in places where I would, and branches that come out in areas that I would normally prune off to accentuate the structure and the form of the plant, I'm not doing that because they need every bit of food for photosynthesis that they can get to ensure their survival. So a lot of things will not be as pruned and as clipped and as tailored as I like. There are some happy, this is one of my, I think it was a signature touch. I love those red geraniums in front of that gorgeous woodpile. I just like the woodpile. It's a little bit higher this year than it normally is. I don't worry about termites. This woodpile will get up used pretty quickly, and it's not really near close to any wooden structures, but I like the way it creates a division in kind of a garden room from the dining space on the deck, and the other areas. I really do love the way the greens shimmer and the colors come out on a rainy, cloudy day. Here's that hanging basket I did. Now, someone asked me why didn't I show hanging it? Well, because it took 2 to hang it, and somebody had to hold a camera, and we didn't have an extra pair of hands. But you can see that it's on a hook, and this is on a branch that is truncated because it had storm damage, but I kept the branch there even though it may not be alive. It may still put out some foliage along its length, but because this is where I like to hang my hanging basket, so hopefully it will regenerate with some new growth. But I love this hanging basket here. Now, we've had extremely high wind. To top off our very difficult winter, we've had extremely high wind, so a lot of the plants are a little bit battered and bruised from that high wind, but nevertheless they're looking beautiful, and you can see all of the new growth, and it's supposed to get up into the 70s and 80s this week, so I think all of that warmth will make stuff really, really pop. And they are very slow in coming out, but all of the Nandina has new foliage on it. And pretty soon areas like the bistro, which is normally very full and lush right now, still looks barren because of those sticks in the background. Those are all Nandina, but they do have new growth on them. You can see it, and before I know it, those will be flushed out. It's just everything's taking time, and then I need to replant the things in those corner baskets. But this year, I'm just giving myself a break. I normally, and I still am, I guess, extremely impatient to get everything looking just perfect. And normally my garden is much more garden tour ready this time of year. But again, I'm giving myself a break. I'm doing the best I can given the amount of time I have. But this whole area, I've got some plants coming in, some Southern Living plants that one of them is another gorgeous Terra Oakleaf hydrangea. You can see the big bud on that, and that's one of the most beautiful blooms ever, and I'm going to fill that area with more Terra hydrangeas. This area this faces north, and oh my goodness, did it take a hit. It really took a hit. So however cold it got, it was really cold on this side. And I'm not the only one. I never want it to sound as if like, oh, poor me, because gardens that I have visited across the city are in as bad, if not worse shape than mine. The yews are putting on lots of new growth. I'm thrilled about that. They actually came through the storm pretty well. And the geraniums look very happy. This stand might get moved a bit. I'm to the point now where I'm going to start cutting back some of the canes on my hydrangeas. You know, I always wait to do that for a fairly long time to make sure that there are no buds that will erupt along the length of the cane, because those are the ones that will bloom. And let me see if I can find an example here. Yes, okay, so see on that woody stem there is a green bud coming out. Now, had I pruned that, what looked to be a dead branch all the way to the ground, I would have pruned off that viable green bud. And there might be more to slowly come out vertically up the cane. So I'm gonna, but this week I think I'll have a pretty good idea what is dead and what is not. And I can prune these back, and just this foliage will come out heartily here before too long. The Annabelle is going gangbusters. I don't do anything. I've got lots of leucojum foliage, the snowflakes, and some daffodil foliage. I just kind of leave that alone. I don't do anything with it. Pretty soon it will be hidden by the other plants that are coming up. The Oakleaf hydrangeas, I think they really probably liked the cold. And so they are already putting out huge buds, which makes me very, very happy. And you can see the top here of my volunteer topiary Burford holly. That's a standard on stem that you can see in the wintertime, but now it's completely camouflaged by all of the very happy Oakleaf hydrangeas. Now coming up, some of you have asked me to do a list of my favorite blooming shrubs, maybe favorite shrubs in general, and I'm going to do that. All of this ferny frilly stuff, that's all larkspur that's going to bloom blue here in no time at all. There's a little Miss Figgy in a pot, but you can see the boxwood they opened up after the rain, and I'm giving all of the boxwood a little bit more time to come out, and then I will give it its nice spherical prune. Now these are new. I don't think I've shown you these buds on this All That Glitters viburnum. Later those will turn into blueberries. And this is one of those shrubs that I kind of pruned up so that I could grow things underneath, like hidden in the back, that Solomon seal, that variegated Solomon seal. And the foliage on this is just really, really beautiful. Now it's taking a long time for this Eugenia that was in the greenhouse to come out. But I showed you this before, but see, there's lots of new growth that comes out red. But next week I expect it to really go gangbusters because of the warm temperature supposed to have. The Deutzia this year, oh my goodness, and that is Deutzia, was incredible. I think it really liked the cold weather. And this has been blooming its head off for maybe this is week 3. Look at all that foxglove under there. And I love how beautiful it looks with the foliage of the Oakleaf hydrangea. Now after this finishes blooming, prune after bloom, I will probably give this Deutzia a really hard prune because it's very mature, it's happy here, and it can get a little bit out of control in the summertime. So in the foreground here, still lots to come. I have many, many hydrangeas, white hydrangeas, lots of white wedding hydrangeas. And look, there's I don't know where that came from, but there's a clematis vine, a clematis stem coming up through the white wedding hydrangea. Some of them, these aren't all white wedding, but primarily. And I planted some of these last year, so they should do their thing here in probably June. Now another thing that's really spectacular, it looks much prettier when it's not such a dreary day, is this Woodgillia. And look at the color of those flowers. And this is another example of, number one, an irresponsible gardener. See where I left my shovel out yesterday and didn't put it up, and then it rained. But also this is another example of a shrub that I pruned up, and it's got this umbral form, kind of an umbrella form. And I think it looks very pretty with the dark red of the branching of the cotoneaster, which will start greening up pretty soon. And really anything that's got a reddish tint, like the Nandina in the background. The Chinese Snowball viburnum back here is about finished. Now, interestingly, it did not put out as many blooms this year, but the blooms it did put out were bigger. So go figure. I'm not really sure what the science of that is, but nevertheless. And the potager, I'm gonna let it put on lots of new growth. It will get very, very fluffy before I do another prune, because I want it to be entirely fresh in its foliage. And so I'm going to let it grow out quite a bit, and then I'll do a hard prune on it. Look at all the heads of the allium. There's even some, they're not very big this year. Again, I never really know what's going to happen, but you can see in there some of the poppies that have started to come up. They got a bath last night, a shower last night, so they're a little bit droopy. And pretty soon, these baskets, these are QVC baskets, by the way. The stuff is not yet available, but it will be around May 20th. The date has been moved. And once they are, you'll be able to buy them online and obviously during my show. And I will give you more details on that as soon as I know it, as soon as I know them. But they are weatherproof, waterproof, muck-proof. And of course, you guys know that I like them to get mucked up a little bit. And then there's the barberries that have done just so spectacularly. A lot of you, and I will put a link below, but a lot of you have asked me about the barberries this year because they're so beautiful. The orange rocket in particular came out just a gorgeous color this year. Again, everything is very droopy. It rained very hard last night, and we've got a lot more to come. So, slowly but surely, I'm getting the garden together back here, and before long, I'm hoping it will be primped to perfection. I've still got a number of things to plant. You can see over there some agapanthus and some pots that need some more puffing. But nevertheless, it's coming along, and I wanted to sneak in a walkabout in between raindrops for you guys. So there's a little wet update, and I'll talk you back.